For years, I quietly supported my family. Then, when I offered my dad a retirement gift, he threw it back, accusing me of showing off. My name is Natalie, and I'm 32 years old. I built a $20 million business from the ground up, with no college degree. While I silently helped my family financially, they often judged my career choices. Last month, during my father's birthday dinner, everything changed. He called me illiterate trash and told me to leave his house. What he didn't realize was how much I'd actually accomplished. 3 weeks later, the look on his face made every tear I'd cried worth it. Before I tell you how I went from supporting my family to being called garbage by my own father, please leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt underestimated by the people who should have believed in you most, hit that like button and subscribe. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, where expectations were pretty straightforward. My father, Richard, had been an accountant at the same firm for 30 years and firmly believed that a college education was the only real path to success. My mother, Helen, an elementary school teacher, silently agreed with his views. Even from a young age, I knew I was different from my siblings, David and Claire, who both followed the traditional route. At just 10 years old, I had a business mindset that puzzled my parents. While other kids played after school, I ran an elaborate lemonade stand, complete with different flavors and loyalty cards for my regulars. By 13, I was fixing computers for neighbors, charging $20 an hour instead of the local repair shop's $75. My parents saw these activities as cute hobbies, nothing more. Natalie needs to focus on academics instead of these little business projects, my father would say at dinner. These games won't pay the bills when she grows up. High school was tough. I maintained good grades while spending my free time reading business books and following entrepreneurs online. While my siblings joined clubs that would look good on college applications, I started an online company selling personalized phone cases I made myself, earning nearly $2,000 before graduating. Despite my doubts, I enrolled in community college. To appease my parents, it only took one semester to confirm what I already knew. The structured environment felt like a prison, and the business classes were taught by professors who had never run their own businesses. When I told my parents I wanted to drop out to pursue my business ideas, the fight lasted for days. "You'll throw your life away?" my father yelled, his face red. "No child of mine will be a college dropout working minimum wage jobs forever." Despite their protests, I left school at 19 with barely $2,000 saved from various side hustles. The first few months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a rough neighborhood, the kind where you never did laundry after dark. I survived on ramen noodles and cheap groceries while working 18-hour days to build my e-commerce website. My first 3 business ventures completely failed. I lost money on a drop-shipping business because vendors provided shoddy products. My social media management service collapsed because I underpriced myself and burned out trying to serve too many clients. My handcrafted jewelry attempt didn't go beyond occasional sales at local markets. Each failure taught me crucial lessons no college course could offer. I learned supply chain management the hard way, how to structure client contracts through unpleasant experiences, and production scalability by confronting its limits firsthand. The turning point came when I met Catherine at a local business networking event. She was 20 years my senior and had successfully exited many companies. She saw something in me that my family never did. She became the mentor I desperately needed, sharing practical business wisdom without caring about my lack of a degree. Education comes in many forms, Catherine told me over coffee. Some of the most successful people I know learned by doing, not sitting in classrooms. At 22, I refined my business strategy with her guidance. I launched an e-commerce platform that connected small American producers with customers looking for locally made products. The timing was perfect, riding a wave of enthusiasm for supporting small businesses and domestic production. Those early days demanded immense sacrifice. I converted half of my tiny apartment into a makeshift office, sleeping on a futon that doubled as my couch. My desktop computer and printer took up most of my living space. I worked from 5 a.m. until 11 p.m., It's managing everything from website coding to customer service calls. The breakthrough arrived 8 months later when a popular lifestyle blogger featured one of our artisan partners. Orders flooded in, overwhelming our basic systems. I worked for 72 hours straight, fulfilling orders and upgrading our website infrastructure. That single feature generated $10,000 in revenue, more than I'd ever seen in my account. I called my parents, eager to share my progress. My father answered with cautious skepticism. "That's nice, honey, but it's probably just temporary." "No, you can always go back to college when this thing runs its course." His words stung, but they also fueled my determination. I would prove him wrong, not with arguments, but with undeniable results. The next 5 years were a whirlwind of constant growth and challenges. My e-commerce site, Coastal Crafted, expanded far beyond its original concept. We started with only 27 artisan partners across 3 states. By year 3, we represented over 400 manufacturers and artisans from all 50 states, connecting them with customers who valued American-made goods. Each stage of growth brought unique problems. When our server crashed during a major sale, I stayed up for 48 hours straight, working with developers to restore the site and personally replying to customer emails to maintain goodwill. When a larger competitor tried to poach our top sellers, with promises of better terms, I pushed to meet with each one in person, strengthening relationships and improving our incentive structure. The most challenging period was in year 2, when cash flow nearly suffocated the business. We were growing too quickly for our capital base, with inventory needs exceeding income. I went without a salary for 4 months, moved to a smaller apartment, to save money, and negotiated longer payment terms with suppliers. Those months taught me financial discipline, which would serve me well as the company grew. Major milestones followed quickly. Our first office was a converted industrial space downtown, and I hired 3 people to manage customer service and seller relations. Midway through year 3, I hit $1 million in annual revenue, which I celebrated alone in my office with a single glass of champagne after everyone else had left. Through it all, I kept my burgeoning success relatively private from my family. They knew I had a website business that was doing well, but I downplayed the full extent of our expansion. Their initial discouragement had built a barrier I couldn't seem to overcome. A part of me hoped they'd eventually ask probing questions about my work, showing genuine curiosity, but those conversations never happened, despite their lukewarm support. I continued to help my family financially as needed. When my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer in my 4th year of business, I secretly paid the $75,000 in medical bills that insurance didn't cover. My father later mentioned an insurance payout that had saved them from medical bills, unaware of the true source. My brother David struggled with the down payment for his first home. His bank account was $40,000 short of what he needed. I structured a family loan through a second account, making it appear to be from a distant uncle. He gladly accepted the money, but whenever we discussed my profession, he kept mentioning getting a real job with benefits. Claire, my sister, had always dreamed of a perfect wedding when her fiancé Ethan lost his job 6 months before the wedding. I covered the $50,000 difference for the venue and food. Claire knew the money came from me, but she minimized it at family gatherings, alluding to my small online business. That was doing well. The gap between my actual accomplishments and my family's perceptions fueled an increasingly painful internal conflict. By day, I oversaw strategy meetings for a multi-million-dollar company, made decisions that impacted hundreds of partner businesses, and negotiated exclusive collections with large retail chains. By night, I received texts from family members who treated me like a college dropout who got lucky with the internet. My company's headquarters grew to a full floor in a downtown office, building with 38 full-time employees and an active internship program. Our valuation rose to $20 million after a Business Insider piece attracted the attention of numerous investors. I retained majority ownership, rejecting takeover bids that would have made me wealthy but cost me control of my vision. As my father's 60th birthday approached, I reached a conclusion. It was time to be open about my accomplishments, not to brag, but to finally break through the misconceptions and hopefully earn the respect I'd sought for years. I bought a significant gift, a fully funded retirement investment account, and prepared to present it, along with the truth about my company during his birthday dinner. The night before the meal, I rehearsed what I would say. I was no longer the insecure 19-year-old seeking acceptance. I was a successful entrepreneur who provided opportunities for hundreds of American manufacturers and dozens of employees. That would finally earn my father's respect and change how my family perceived my unconventional path. I couldn't have been more wrong. The evening of my father's 60th birthday started well enough. Their house looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood, with the same furniture and family portraits on the walls. The only new addition was a giant television my brother had bought them last Christmas, prominently displayed as a symbol of his financial contribution to the family. My mother greeted me with her usual reserved affection, a brief hug and a pat on the back. "You look nice, Natalie. Did you cut your hair?" It was the same haircut I'd had for 3 years. David arrived with his wife, Melissa, dressed smartly in business casual attire that subtly emphasized their upper-middle-class background. Claire and Ethan arrived shortly after, and Claire immediately began telling stories about her recent promotion. At the accounting firm where she followed in our father's footsteps, the partners are already hinting I might make junior partner next year, she revealed while helping prepare appetizers, youngest in the firm's history. During the pre-dinner conversation, no one asked about my career. When Ethan briefly mentioned reading an article about e-commerce growth, my brother quickly shifted the conversation to his son's minor league baseball accomplishments. Dinner was my mother's typical pot roast with all the fixings, served on fine china, saved for special occasions. My father sat at the head of the table, accepting compliments on his youthful appearance with reserved modesty. "65 looks good on you, Dad," David said, raising his glass. "Here's to another 20 years at least." The moment felt right when dessert was served. I had patiently waited through conversations about neighborhood gossip, David's children's achievements, and Claire's upcoming vacation plans. No one had asked anything about my life or business. "Dad, Mom, everyone," I began, my heart pounding despite my outward calm. "I wanted to share some news about my company." My father nodded absently, reaching for another slice of cake. Coastal Crafted was recently valued at $20 million, I told them. "We've received several acquisition offers, and I was featured in Business Insider and Entrepreneur magazine last month." The silence that followed seemed endless. My mother froze with her fork halfway to her lips. Claire exchanged a quick glance. With Ethan, David just stared. My father was the first to speak, his tone contemptuous. "What exactly does that mean, Natalie? These internet businesses use all sorts of funny math to come up with these valuations." I remained calm, explaining in simple terms how business valuations work, our revenue streams, and growth trajectory. I highlighted our office of 38 employees and collaborations with over 400 American manufacturers. David cut in before I could. "Continue. So, you got lucky with this online thing?" "That's great, but some of us have been building real careers with actual qualifications." He emphasized the word qualifications as he looked at his wife, who nodded in agreement. "It's not luck," I explained gently. "It's 7 years of working 18-hour days, solving complex problems, and building something meaningful. We've helped save dozens of American manufacturing businesses that were on the verge of closing." My mother eventually spoke, her tone uncertain. "That sounds impressive, dear, though I still wish you had finished your degree. Even with this, business education is important." I was losing patience, but I persisted. "Actually, I brought something for Dad." I handed him an envelope containing paperwork for the retirement account I had set up. "I wanted to ensure you both have a comfortable retirement." My father opened the letter, his face darkening as he recognized what it was. Instead of appreciation, his cheeks burned with something resembling rage. "What is this supposed to be? Some kind of charity?" He dropped the papers on the table. "We didn't raise you to throw money around like you're better than everyone." "That's not my intention at all," I explained. "I just wanted to help, the same way I helped with Mom's medical bills, David's house down payment, and Claire's wedding." 3 heads snapped up at the same time. My hidden financial help was suddenly exposed. "You!" my father exclaimed. That was all you. Claire looked mortified. David's face hardened into something unpleasant. My mother just looked bewildered. You've been secretly paying for things behind our backs? My father's voice grew louder with each syllable, playing the big shot with your internet money. I was just trying to help, I said, my voice softer than I intended. I never wanted recognition, just wanted to support the family. Support? David interrupted, by making us feel like charity cases. Some of us work honest jobs with actual degrees, not getting rich quick with online schemes. It's not a scheme, I said, feeling the conversation slip out of my control. Built a legitimate business that helps American manufacturers reach customers. We employ dozens of people with good salaries and benefits. My father stood up, letting his napkin fall to the floor. You drop out of college against our advice. Disappear into your little internet world? And now you come back throwing money around like you have all the answers. That's not what I'm doing, I insisted, struggling to keep my voice calm. You think your money makes you successful? He asked, his voice rising further. You're still just uneducated trash who got lucky. Anyone can get lucky. The room fell silent. My mother gasped softly and offered nothing in my defense. David looked down at his plate, a small smile forming at the corner of his mouth. Claire looked torn between humiliation and agreement. Richard, my mother finally said, too late and too softly to matter. No, my father insisted, now completely agitated. I've worked my entire life the right way. I got an education, built a respectable career, raised a family. I will not be shown up in my own home by my dropout daughter. I rose slowly, picking up my handbag. I should go. Yes, you should, my father retorted. Get out of my house, you lowlife. Your money doesn't make you part of this family. We have standards. The words landed like physical blows. I looked at each face around the table, searching for an ally, or a hint of support. There was none. Happy birthday, Dad. I replied quietly, heading to the door with all the dignity I could muster. Nobody followed me out. Nobody called after me. I got into my car, my hands shaking so much that I could barely grip the steering wheel. As I drove away from the house, where I grew up, I felt something essential had broken and could never be fixed. My drive back to the hotel was a blur of streetlights and tears. I had to pull over twice because emotion overwhelmed my ability to drive safely. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I had a multi-million-dollar company, yet I was spending the night in a hotel in my hometown because my own family's home was no longer accessible to me. In the sterile silence of my hotel room, I replayed the evening's events, scrutinizing every word and emotion. Had I been too forward, too proud? Had I misjudged our family dynamics all these years? The financial help I had provided now felt like a foolish attempt to buy acceptance I could never earn through my achievements. I took out my laptop and started documenting every penny I had given my family over the years. The list was extensive. $75,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, paid directly to the hospital and doctors. My brother's house cost $120,000, which included not only the down payment but also additional renovations he wanted. Months later, $50,000 for my sister's wedding, including the venue, catering, and honeymoon, which she had no idea I paid for. Countless smaller expenses. My father's car repair last winter, $22,000. My mother's kitchen renovation, $35,000. Christmas gifts, birthday presents, and emergency bills. All handled discreetly through accounts meant to hide their origin. Nearly $300,000 in all, not including the retirement account my father had just rejected. Money I never intended to get back, given freely out of love for a family who had just called me garbage. Around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Claire. Dad's still upset, but he'll get over it. You know how he reacts when his authority is challenged? There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the awful things said, only the assumption that I would absorb the abuse and return to the family dynamic as if nothing had happened. I didn't reply. The next morning, I contacted a therapist in the city where I usually lived. Dr. Mitchell agreed to an emergency virtual session that afternoon. Family wounds cut deepest, she said after I told her about the dinner especially. When they target the very things we've worked hardest to overcome. Dr. Mitchell helped me understand the complex dynamics at play over the next few days. My success threatened the family structure and the principles my parents had based their lives on. My financial support, rather than eliciting gratitude, had sparked resentment by highlighting a shift in power dynamics they couldn't accept. Your father's identity is built around being the provider and authority, she told me. Your success challenges both roles. I started journaling, documenting not only the previous night, but also patterns throughout my childhood. Subtle ways my entrepreneurial spirit had been discouraged. Times when academic achievements were celebrated while business successes were downplayed, and the constant reminder that without a degree, I would never truly succeed. This exercise showed how deeply I had internalized those messages. Despite my undeniable success, a part of me still felt like the family failure, the dropout with something to prove. This explained my reluctance to openly reveal my accomplishments and my ongoing financial assistance without recognition. A week after the terrible dinner, my sister called. I let it go to voicemail. "Natalie, please call back. My dad feels horrible about what happened." We all do. But you have to understand how it looked. You're walking in and basically flaunting your wealth. It was inconsiderate to those of us who had worked hard for our careers. I deleted the message instead of returning the call. The twist was astonishing. Somehow, I had become the villain for simply stating facts about my company after years of downplaying my success. My brother texted next. "Family is family. Let's move past this." There was no apology there either, only an assumption that I would accept my assigned role and the treatment that came with it. 2 weeks after the dinner, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I would choose self-respect over destructive family relationships. My new home would be the beach house I had bought as an investment property in Naples, Florida, the year before. Before leaving, I sent a letter to my parents, an angry tirade, but a sincere confession of hurt and disappointment. "Dear Mother and Father, I've spent years seeking your acceptance and respect. To avoid making anyone uncomfortable, I've provided financial assistance for our family while downplaying my achievements. Despite building a $20 million company that helps sustain American manufacturing jobs, I've been made to feel like the family failure because I took a different path than you did. When Dad called me illiterate trash and a lowlife, it exposed how you truly perceive me. No amount of accomplishment can ever change that perception. I cannot continue to be in a relationship where my worth is defined by credentials rather than character and achievement. I will always love you both, but I need to distance myself from my own well-being. I hope that eventually we can repair our relationship on the basis of mutual respect. Love, Natalie." I sealed the letter and mailed it myself. No response arrived in the days that followed. I had my executive assistant pack and ship my personal items from Ohio to Florida. I asked her to donate most of my furniture and clothing. 2 local charities, as I wanted to start over with as little baggage as possible. My company could be run remotely, with periodic visits back for essential meetings. The leadership team I had developed over the years was capable of handling day-to-day operations without my constant presence. As I boarded the plane to Florida, I felt a strange mix of loss and freedom. The family I had worked so hard to please was behind me, but so was the pressure of seeking approval I would never receive. Naples, Florida, welcomed me with warm sunshine and salt-scented air, a sharp contrast to the bleak winter I had left behind. My beach house was a modern 2-story structure, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf of Mexico, standing on a secluded stretch of shoreline. I bought it as an investment property the previous year, but had only been there twice for short vacations. When I first arrived, the property felt impersonal, more like an upscale hotel than a home. The real estate agency had furnished it with generic luxury vacation home decor, which was lovely but soulless. Making my house truly mine became a form of therapy. I started in the primary bedroom, replacing the bland beige bedding with handcrafted quilts from one of my coastal crafted artisans in North Carolina. The mass-produced art was replaced with original works by emerging American artists I discovered through the business. Each morning, I awoke to the sound of waves and the sight of true creativity all around me. The next step was to renovate the kitchen. I installed open shelving to display handcrafted ceramics from our Vermont and New Mexico suppliers. The industrial grade appliances remained, but colorful hand-woven linens and locally sourced wooden serving boards added warmth to the area. Routines became vital to my healing process. Every morning started with the sunrise walk down the beach, my feet in the cool sand, gathering shells, and watching dolphins arc through the waves offshore. I found a small coffee shop run by a Cuban-American family, where I became a regular, greeted by name rather than by order. Running the business remotely was easier than expected. In-person meetings were replaced by video conferences, and our existing systems worked seamlessly with minimal changes. Without the daily commute and office distractions, I found myself more productive and able to make better judgments from my new serene headquarters. Executive team paid a visit and spent 3 days on my oceanfront deck conducting strategic planning meetings. Several people commented on the positive changes they saw in my leadership style. "You seem more centered, Tyler," my operations director remarked, "more confident in your decisions." He was right. Without the pressure to seek family approval, my business instincts flowed more readily. I trusted my own judgment without the specter of my father's condemnation hovering over each decision. Community involvement became another pillar in my new life. I joined both the local Chamber of Commerce and a businesswomen's networking organization. Like in my hometown where I had downplayed my success, here I was, open about my company and accomplishments. Respect came naturally. Free of the baggage of who I was before my achievement, I became friends with Samantha, the owner of a local art gallery, and she introduced me to her network of people. These were accomplished women in their 30s and 40s who admired each other for their current achievements rather than their past qualifications. Our weekly dinner gatherings became a highlight, filled with laughter and conversations that never included inquiries about my schooling or claims that I had simply gotten lucky. 3 weeks after I moved to Florida, I received an unexpected visit. My brother David showed up suddenly at my door one Saturday afternoon. "Nice place," he exclaimed, whistling as he took in the seaside view from my living room. "Really nice." His arrival was unsettling in my new sanctuary. He seemed out of place in his button-down shirt and pressed khakis against my casual coastal decor. "What brings you to Florida, David?" I inquired, not offering him a drink or a seat. "Family," he said, with the same confident smile that had charmed our parents since childhood. "And I could use some advice about an investment opportunity, possibly a loan to get in on the ground floor." Some patterns were too obvious to be surprising. His facade immediately dissolved in the absence of my parents. This was strictly a financial visit. "I'm not making any loans to family members anymore," I stated firmly. "That chapter is closed." His expression stiffened. "So that's how it is. You move to your beach mansion and forget where you came from." Dad was right about you. Dad called me uneducated trash and kicked me out of his house, I told him later. "Is that what you came here to reinforce?" David quickly retreated. "He didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. Family fights happen. That wasn't a fight. It was a revelation," I responded. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this afternoon." After showing him the door, I sat on my terrace watching the surf, remarkably unaffected by the experience. The boundaries I was establishing felt right, even though they were difficult to implement. That evening, I made an important decision. I called my lawyer and set up an anonymous scholarship fund at the community college I had briefly attended. The Natalie Brooks Entrepreneurship Scholarship would offer full tuition and mentorship to 5 students each year who displayed entrepreneurial potential but lacked traditional academic advantages. Make sure the selection criteria focus on demonstrated initiative and creative problem solving, not grades, I told the attorney. And look for mentors who have actually built businesses rather than just taught business classes. As the weeks passed, my place truly felt like home. I created a garden of native Florida plants that attracted butterflies and hummingbirds. I rescued a mixed-breed dog named Milo who accompanied me on beach walks and slept at the foot of my bed. His simple affection was a constant reminder of how relationships should feel. I discovered surprising peace in solitude. Without the constant underlying fear of family criticism, I uncovered facets of myself that had previously been overshadowed by stress. I took a pottery class at a nearby studio and enjoyed the contemplative process despite my clumsy skills. I tried paddleboard yoga, spending more time in the water than on the board, but laughing through each attempt. 3 weeks became a month, then 6 weeks. The sting of familial rejection lingered, but it became less sharp, more like an old ache, that occasionally flared than a fresh wound. I was building something new here, not just a home, but a real life based on my values rather than others' expectations. Then came an unforeseen revelation that would bring my family's narrative full circle in ways I never imagined. The Naples Business Journal was not a publication I usually read, but Samantha texted me early one morning and insisted I get a copy. Page 3. You'll want to see this. The feature story highlighted local business owners who were making an impact outside Florida. There I was, pictured on my deck with the Gulf of Mexico behind me. With the headline, "E-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar business to Naples." The journalist had done her research, outlining Coastal Crafted's rise from startup to a $20 million valuation, our impact on American manufacturing, and my recent Entrepreneurship Scholarship Foundation. The story presented a far more comprehensive image of achievement than anything I had seen in my hometown media. I didn't authorize this, I told Samantha after she called to congratulate me. Public records, she clarified. Property transfers, business registrations. Once they knew you were here, the rest was easy to piece together. Besides, it's a great article. She was right. The piece was well-researched and flattering, emphasizing corporate accomplishments rather than personal information. I didn't think much about it until the next week when my phone began to light up with social media notifications. The article was picked up by numerous larger business publications and then widely shared on LinkedIn and Facebook. Former high school classmates instantly recalled our connection. Teachers remarked that they had always recognized my talent. Most surprising were the letters from several small business owners in my hometown who thanked me for demonstrating what was possible without following established channels. "You inspired me to finally start my business," wrote one former student. "If you can build something that's substantial without a fancy degree, then perhaps my idea has value as well." The local newspaper in my hometown published a simplified version of the article with an additional angle: "Local entrepreneur makes national impact." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same community that had quietly reinforced my parents' disappointment suddenly recognized me as a hometown success story. My family eventually discovered the full depth of my accomplishment as a result of the media's ripple effect. The first hint was a friend request from my cousin Hannah, followed by several additional extended family members who had previously shown little interest in my life. Then my mother texted me, "I saw the article about your company. Very impressive, my dear. Dad and I are quite proud." No mention of his cruel words, no acknowledgement of the rift, just a casual claim of pride that had been noticeably absent while I sat at their dinner table. My father's voice message arrived the following day, his tone deceptively cheerful. "Natalie, there's huge news regarding your company in the paper. I've always known you had it in you. There appears to have been a misunderstanding last time we spoke. Call me back as soon as you can." A misunderstanding? He had called his daughter illiterate trash and ordered her to leave his house. 3 days later, my mother texted again, "We're thinking of visiting Florida next month. I'd love to see your new place. Let us know if that works for you." The message hit me like a stone in my gut. 6 weeks of healing, of building a new life, free of their judgment, and now they wanted to simply show up at my door as if nothing had happened. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Mitchell. "You have several options," she said after hearing my concerns. "You can decline the visit entirely. You can agree, but set strict boundaries about what you will and will not discuss. Or you can see this as an opportunity for honest conversation that might lead to healing, though that requires their willingness to acknowledge the harm done." After careful thought, I wrote my mother, "You and Dad are welcome to visit, but we need to have an open discussion about what happened. At his birthday dinner, before we can proceed, please let me know if you are open to that kind of conversation." Her response was quick. "Of course, dear. We just want to get this behind us and be a family again." The phrase bothered Mitha desired to put everything behind us without confronting it directly. But I finalized plans for their visit the following month. As the day neared, I prepared physically and emotionally. I arranged for them to stay in a nearby motel rather than my home, allowing me to maintain my privacy. I role-played difficult conversations with Dr. Mitchell to practice setting limits without becoming defensive. My parents arrived on a lovely Tuesday afternoon. I met them for lunch at a seaside restaurant, which provided a public setting to help temper the initial meeting. They appeared smaller, less threatening than they did in Ohio. My father seemed to be losing confidence. My mother seemed more nervous than I remembered. Despite the coastal environment, they both dressed formally, my father in a button-down shirt and slacks, and my mother in a structured dress more appropriate for church than a beachside meal. "This place is something else," my father observed, pointing to the turquoise ocean visible through the restaurant windows. "You've done well for yourself, Natalie." The subtle emphasis on "for yourself" didn't escape me the hint that my success existed independently of family values. "Thank you," I said simply, not breaking the tense silence that followed. My mother engaged in small talk about their flight, the weather, how different Florida was from Ohio. I responded pleasantly but didn't contribute to the conversation. Finally, once our meal arrived, my father spoke up about what had happened during my birthday dinner. "Things got a bit heated. You called me uneducated trash and a lowlife," I replied quietly. "Told me to get out of your house, and that my money didn't make me part of the family." His cheeks reddened. "I was surprised by the news about your business. It caught me off guard. I may have overreacted." Not an apology, but an excuse. "I need to understand," I said, keeping eye contact. "Was that reaction about me sharing my success, or about learning I had been helping the family financially?" "Both felt like you were showing off," my mother remarked, like you were saying, "You're better than us now." "I never said or thought that," I explained. "I spent years hiding my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. I helped financially because I could, and I wanted to support the family I love." My dad shifted uncomfortably. "Now, the way you presented it was very forward in finding out you were behind those other things. It felt like charity we never asked for." The conversation remained in this vein throughout lunch. There was no genuine apology, only explanations and attempts to diminish the gravity of the situation. The implication became clearer. They were here because my public achievement made rejecting me socially awkward. It's not because they had revised their opinion of my value. As we finished our lunch, I made a decision. "I'd like to show you my home. But first, I need to be very clear about something. I will not pretend the dinner never happened. I will not accept being called names or having my choices demeaned. If you want a relationship moving forward, it has to be based on mutual respect." They exchanged glances, and my father nodded stiffly. "That seems reasonable." When they arrived at my beach property later that afternoon, their expressions as they took in the magnificent ocean view said it all. This tangible evidence of my progress could not be dismissed or minimized. The $20 million valuation was no longer an abstract figure, but reflected in beachfront real estate and elegant surroundings. "This is quite something," my father said, his voice tight. "Would you like a tour?" I suggested as I guided them through the house, pointing out the handcrafted artifacts from coastal crafted artisans that adorned each room. I realized something significant. Their acceptance, which I had desired for so long, no longer carried the same weight. I was proud of this home and the company that made it possible, regardless of how they reacted. This discovery was possibly the most valuable outcome of their visit, worth more than any apology they could have given. The conversation that occurred after my parents' tour of the beach house was painful but important. We sat on the terrace overlooking the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful for such a heated debate. "I want to be clear about something," my father said, his tone more conciliatory than I'd ever heard. "I am sorry for what I said at my birthday. It was uncalled for, regardless of how surprised I was. While the apology was appreciated, it was tempered by a qualification that lessened its significance." His focus remained on his amazement rather than the damage his comments had caused. What hurt most, I said softly, is that those words seem to reveal how you truly see me, despite everything I have accomplished. My mother reached across the table, gesturing toward my hand rather than touching it. We've always been proud. Of you, Natalie? We just worried about your future without a degree. My future is here, I declared, pointing to the property and the business that had made it possible. I built it without a degree, but with 7 years of working harder than most people ever will. That deserves respect, not condescension. My dad shifted uncomfortably. The business world can be fickle. Companies rise and fall overnight. We just wanted security for you. I understand that concern comes from love, I told them. But there's no perfect security in any path. Plenty of people with degrees struggle financially, while others without formal education thrive. What matters is recognizing there are multiple valid paths to success. The conversation lasted several hours as the sun set and stars appeared. Over the gulf, there was no dramatic reconciliation, no sobbing group hug that somehow repaired decades of misunderstanding. Instead, we achieved a shaky agreement, a starting point, rather than a conclusion. Moving forward, I said as the gathering ended, I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but with clear boundaries. I will not accept being demeaned for my educational choices or having my success attributed to luck rather than hard work and skill. My parents consented, but I could see my father's reluctance in his tight smile and the way he qualified his comments. My mother appeared more open, perhaps realizing for the first time the part she had played in allowing the family dynamics that had caused so much suffering. After they returned to Ohio, I reflected on their visit and the journey that had brought me here. The healing process was far from complete, but significant progress had been made. In the months that followed, I only spoke with my parents once a week, and the calls became less awkward over time. My relationship with my siblings developed differently. Claire eventually offered a genuine apology for her role in the family dynamics, and we gradually rebuilt a relationship based on adult friendship rather than childhood habits. David stayed distant, occasionally sending holiday pleasantries, but making no real attempt to understand or acknowledge the pain he had caused. My personal recovery journey continues with frequent therapy appointments. Dr. Mitchell helped me see how family trauma had influenced my approach to business and relationships, instilling habits of seeking validation through performance and financial generosity. Success is not a substitute for self-worth, my therapist told me, and family approval cannot be bought, no matter how much you give. This realization prompted me to set firmer limits in all interactions. I felt more comfortable talking about my successes without downplaying them. I learned to contribute out of true generosity, rather than in an attempt to gain acceptance. The Entrepreneurship Foundation became the focal point of my philanthropic efforts. Aside from supporting scholarships, I created a mentorship program that connects successful business owners without traditional credentials with talented students facing similar obstacles. Witnessing their development and achievement provided a deeper sense of happiness than any family approval could. My friend's circle in Naples grew, forming a chosen family built on mutual respect and genuine connection. Our weekly get-togethers provided a sense of joy and belonging that I had never experienced in Ohio. These interactions, which I deliberately chose and nurtured, showed me what healthy support feels like. The beach house evolved completely over time, with each space representing my unique tastes and values rather than generic luxury. The garden thrived with native flora that attracted wildlife. Milo, my rescue dog, found a companion when I adopted a second dog from the local shelter, a senior retriever named Daisy, whom everyone else had overlooked. Running Coastal Crafted remotely was such a success that I implemented flexible work practices for all employees, allowing them to work from anywhere for part of the year. Productivity rose, and employee satisfaction reached all-time highs. Year after moving to Florida, I hosted a dinner party for my new friends. As we sat around the table on my terrace, watching dolphins frolic in the sunset waves, I reflected on how drastically my life had changed from that awful night at my parents' house to this chosen family.
Wow.
Samantha toasted by raising her glass to having the courage to prioritize respect over obligation. The remark perfectly encapsulated what I had learned on my journey. Family relationships are important, but not at the expense of dignity and self-respect. Success cannot be measured merely by degrees or traditional accomplishments, but rather by the people we impact and the positive change we create. Most significantly, I learned that forgiveness does not imply forgetting or continuing to tolerate abusive treatment. True forgiveness is an emotional process that involves releasing anger and resentment while maintaining healthy boundaries. My story, like everyone's, is still unfolding. My connection with my parents is constantly evolving, sometimes improving and sometimes reverting to old patterns. I maintain my boundaries with compassionate firmness, acknowledging that complete understanding may never be possible, but refusing to compromise my self-worth in the pursuit of it. If my experience has taught me anything, it's that your worth is not defined by other people's perceptions, especially those clouded by outdated beliefs and expectations. Success manifests itself in a variety of ways, often unexpectedly, and the most painful rejections can lead to the most authentic and fulfilling future paths. Have you ever had to choose between meeting family expectations and following your own path? Did you face criticism for your unique approach to success? Please share your experience in the comment section below. If this story resonated with you, remember to like and subscribe, and then share it with others who may be dealing with similar family situations. Thank you for listening. Take care.